Today is going to be like a step-by-step guide, a detailed guide about how to submit a study visa application with your family accompanying you to study in Canada. Guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mariam. If you're new here, I live in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada with my family. I'm an international student. I make videos about navigating life in Canada as an international student. How are you doing? How is everybody doing? Thank you for clicking to watch this video. I do not take it for granted, and I hope you learn one or two things from this video. It, of course, promises to be valuable. Welcome. So today's video is a continuation of a series I started last week. This is the part 2, but today is going to be like a step-by-step guide, a detailed guide about how to submit a study visa application with your family accompanying you to study in Canada. I have a little disclaimer. I am not an immigration consultant. I am not an agent, of course. I am only sharing my experiences here based on what I did when I applied for a study visa to come to Canada to study alongside my family. I'm only sharing my experiences. Whatever I say here is not law. Please do well to do your own research as well. Get right into it. Let's get right into it. The first step of your study in Canada process is the admission process. So before you, of course, come to study in Canada, you need to seek admission. You need to search for institutions, universities, and colleges, and also search for the course you want to study. Determine the type of course you want to study, the number of years. Is it a 1-year course or a 2-year course? Which province this course is in, the cost of the course, and whatever course you're choosing, right? It should show to the visa officer that is going to review your application, career progression, future career plans, or educational plans. The course you're coming to study should be a little different from what you studied in Nigeria, at least from my experience. Like you can't study English back home in Nigeria and then you're coming to do a master's in English. Like, really? Why can't you do it in Nigeria? Why do you have to come all the way to Canada? Why do you have to spend all that money to come study masters in English in Nigeria? So, but if I'm coming to study something like cinematography or film production or artificial intelligence, something more specialized, you'll be able to tell the visa officer, like, in the future, I want to go into artificial intelligence, something. I want to become an expert in artificial intelligence. I want to become a renowned filmmaker. So whatever course you're choosing to study should show, like, okay, for instance, maybe you started training or you got a job 2 years ago as a cinematographer in Nigeria, and you need to further your education to be more specialized, to be an expert. It makes sense. But don't study agriculture in Nigeria and come say you want to come and study agric extension. Like, they're just wondering, why do you have to? Yeah, they want you to come study in Canada because, of course, you're adding to the economy, but it has to make sense. Why do you have to spend so much money to study a course that you can actually study back home? So that is the first step. So seek for admission, and then in seeking for admission, make sure you search for schools that are designated learning institute. I'm going to put the link on IRCC on the description box so that you can actually search and see that your school that you're planning to come and study in Canada is a designated learning institution. Also, that the course you're studying is PGWP eligible. Some institutions might be DLIs, but that particular course you want to study might not qualify for PGWP. So PGWP is postgraduate work permit. Unless you're not planning to work in Canada, but it doesn't make sense that you spend all that money and you can't stay back to work. Maybe you're a rich kid and you don't want to work in Canada. But if you're like me, ensure that the course you're going to study is PGWP eligible. So that is, look for a course, university, a province, and also the province you're going to study. Check out the standard of living. Is it affordable for your economic situation? Can you afford to live there without running into bankruptcy or being under constant pressure? Those are some of the things that you should check out before you seek for admission to come study in Canada. So when you've done all this, of course, universities have requirements for admission. One of them is, which is the transcripts. I want to assume that you've already started your transcript process. So when you finish all this and apply, you pay the application fee, then you wait, and I hope that you receive your application letter. Sorry, you wait. When you finish all this process, you wait, and then you receive your admission letter and letter of acceptance, and then you can move to this next stage, step 2. Step 2 is the stage where you gather your documentation, preparing to apply. So this, you're talking about travel documents, your international passport, if you're married, your marriage certificate, your birth certificate. If you have children, you're coming with your children and your husband. You also need to attach birth certificates for them. They're also their own travel documents. You need to attach a bachelor's degree, documents showing your financial standing. I'm going to get to that stage. Your employment documents. So all your documentation, you start putting them together, scanning them. Every document that you're going to mention in your statement of purpose, it's at this stage that you put everything together, make sure that they're accurate. The next stage is to determine what kind of visa you're going to apply for your dependents, which is your spouse and your children. So for your spouse, you have the option of applying for a work permit or a visiting visa. If he's not planning to stay long term with you while you study, you may want to consider applying for a visiting visa. For your children, you can apply for either a study permit, depending on their age, or a visiting visa as well. In Canada, the official age of study is 4 years in most provinces. That's when they start kindergarten. But in New Brunswick, it is 5 years, right? But for me, when I applied for my family, I applied for study permit for my kids because my second son was just about 2 years. He was 21 months when I applied, but he was already in school, and I could prove that he was already in school. I attached a lot of documents showing his school fees and everything, pictures of him in school, and all that, and he was approved for a study permit. So, but of course, currently in Canada, he's in preschool, he's in daycare. When he turns 5, he will now enter into kindergarten. So determine that, and then you gather all your documents: international passport, digital passport photographs for your kids, birth certificates, NIN, employment document, a bachelor's degree. So you gather that, pay slips and everything. At this stage, admission, first stage, gather your documentation is the second stage. Then the third stage is your proof of funds. This is the biggest part of this whole process, to show that you can afford your stay in Canada, right? So for this, it's advisable. For this one, it is advisable that you pay your fees. If your course is 2 years, you can at least pay 1 year. So you need to show that you can pay your fees. And then for the principal applicant, for instance, which is me, you need to show at least 10,000 Canadian dollars for 1 year living expenses. And then that is, of course, if you're coming for as a single person, that's all you need to add, 10,000 Canadian dollars, and of course miscellaneous costs, and then your school fees. But if you're coming with dependents, you need to add $4,000 for your first dependent, which is your spouse. And then if, let's say, you have 2 kids, for the next dependent, which is your first child, you add $30,000 for 1 year, to $30,000, and $30,000 for the next child. For an IRCC website, it says 1 year, but most people advise that you show that for the number of years that you're going to be in Canada. If your course is 2 years, you should show that for 2 years, and then miscellaneous cost. Miscellaneous cost, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 for a flight. You can show some money for accommodation or for daycare, just something extra, so that the visa officer that is reviewing your application will not think that you're bringing all your money to spend in Canada. The more explainable money you have in your account, the better, because they'll see that you're in good financial standing. Of course, they want you to come to Canada, but I don't think they want you to spend all your investments, your life savings on study in Canada. So that's why it's advisable that you show extra money. So, for instance, your school fees for a year is 20,000 Canadian dollars. You should need to show that, or you would have paid already. In my case, I paid my first year school fees already, and then I added the receipt to my proof of fund documentation, and then my $10,000 for principal applicants, then $4,000, $3,000, and an extra miscellaneous cost of say $5,000 that I can show for flights. So that's how you proof of funds. But of course, you can add more money. You can add more money in as much as it's not in lump sum. If you have like lump sum amount in your account, you need to explain it. You need to write a note and say where that money came from. Your account cannot be an account that is receiving 50k, 100k, and then all of a sudden 30 million just enters. Where did the money come from? You need to show. It's not all about having 30 million naira in your account or 40 million naira in your account, or let's say 30,000 Canadian dollars in your account. You need to show where that money is coming from. Like, how did you build that account? Like, there has to be history. Your account cannot be collecting 2k, urgent 2k here and there, or 3k, and then you now bring 10 million naira from an uncle that has promised to sponsor you. It might not work, so you need to explain it. And if you're going to use a sponsor, the next stage is your proof of fund documentation. So this include your bank statements, your pay slips for if you have a job. If you have a business, you need to bring your business account statement. You need to show your tax certifications. You need to show invoices, history of that business, what kind of business you do, tax documents. If you're receiving like your pay slips from work, explain large sum deposit in your account. Your pay slips, your spouse's pay slip, your spouse's business account, your spouse's account as well. If your spouse is coming with you, or if your spouse is sponsoring you, tax certificate, like I said, transaction history. If you're getting like a sponsorship from like a relative or even your parents or an uncle or an aunt is going to sponsor you, a brother or sister, they need to write a letter saying that they are your sponsors. They also need to submit their own bank statements. They also need to submit their bank statements, their business, whatever. If they are going to give you this money from their business account, they need to submit their business bank statement. They need to submit tax certificates. They need to show, like, okay, give you a gift deed. You can actually notarize it with a lawyer. Write a letter saying that they are going to sponsor you and that the sponsorship is at no cost. They are not expecting you to pay back the money. So a gift deed. Your sponsor has no obligations for this money that they're going to give you, like it's free out of goodwill. So anything to show that this fund you're bringing to invest in Canada is legit. You need to gather those documents at this stage. This is like the most difficult stage in this process, documentation. But the good thing about it is that once you're able to spend enough time putting your documentation together, it makes the application process to go faster, right? So it took me about 3 months to gather my documentation, and of course to make sure that everything I'm submitting is in line with the rules. So your proof of funds documentation must be well put together. So so proof of funds, proof of fund documents at this point. The next stage is to show your proof of home ties. So what is proof of home ties? Although Canada wants you to come study in Canada and work in Canada, maybe be successful in Canada later, at this stage, you're a temporary resident. So you need to prove that you're going back to Canada after your studies. So you need to prove home ties. What can you use to prove home ties? You can use economic home ties, family home ties. So for economic home ties, you can use things like job, if you have lands, houses, businesses. Economic home ties will also be like a job. Maybe after your study, you're coming back to a higher position. Your company has written you a letter saying, yes, indeed, we're in support of her going to study for a master's degree in management, for instance. And when she comes back, you're going to give her a bigger position to manage a unit. She's been a good staff. So those are things that you can use to establish home ties. If you're going to use a house or a land, you need to put the documents together. You see why I said the documentation part is like the biggest part of this whole process. I think it's better for you to spend time to put your documentation together and just have peace of mind and know that at the end of the day you've done your best, and then wait for IRCC to get back to you. So economic home ties could be job, land, houses, your businesses that you're going to live in the hands of maybe a family member or your staff to run while you're away, can also form home ties. For family ties, you could use your parents, your siblings, grandparents, nieces and nephews. Just say that, okay, you have a big family back home and you're going to come back to them. So they need to stay strong home ties. But I know the strongest home ties that I have learned and that we used are like a job, houses, lands. Those are like the biggest one. So yeah, so show economic home ties, family home ties as well. The next thing is to get your police certificate, police character certificate. This may or may not be necessary, but I did it. We did it. For me and my husband, we got police certificate. It lasts for 3 months, so don't do it until you're actually ready to apply, so that it doesn't expire on you. So you have to apply through the of course, Nigerian police force in your state, and then they'll give you a police certificate. Yeah. And then the next stage is your medicals. You can do an upfront medical, or you can wait to be requested from IOM. So they will do their whole medical screening. They have like a list of screenings that they do. I did an upfront medical because I just wanted to submit everything together and just wait rather than go back and forth with the whole process. So you can do your medicals at the IOM. IOM has offices in Abuja, Lagos. I think they just opened a Benin office. Yeah, so you can do your medicals there into this document. The next stage is like the biggest part of this application. This is what explains to the visa officer every step of the way. Everything I have said in this video, all the steps I've given, is tied to this document. It's called the statement of purpose or study plan or motivation. Yeah, statement of purpose or study plan. This is like an essay. There's no limit of words that you can use. It's an essay. It has different aspects, different subheadings. This is what explains to the visa officer, why are you coming to Canada? Why are you coming to study the course? Why are you choosing the province? How is this important to you in your future, in your career goals later in life? Why are you coming to Canada to spend all that money? It's in this document that you're going to say all that. There's no physical interview in Canada, in Canadian visa application. It is this document that shows everything that the visa officer needs to know about your application and decide if he's going to approve or not approve. The school, your future plans. Why can't you do this course in your country? Why does it have to be in Canada? You have to give reasons. The family you're coming with, your company dependents, why do they have to come with you in Canada? Why do they have to come with you to Canada? It's in these documents that you show everything. And then the proof of funds, the home ties, you have to have subheadings in this statement of purpose to explain to the immigration officer the documents that you have attached and the amount of money that you have. I think it took me I had like 7 versions of my statement of purpose, because after I write one, I'll save it, I'll modify more things, I will do more research, and when something changes in my application, my documentation, I'll remove it. So spend a lot of time writing your statement of purpose. Give someone you trust to help you review it, and they might point 1 or 2 things. There are some things that are pointed to me by my spouse, by my husband, and my friends who had of course done this before, and then I had to change the language, tweak it here and there. So it's this statement of purpose that is like your interview. When they read it, they'll be able to understand your history and then what your plans for the future is. Yeah, so that's the statement of purpose. When you've done all this and then you go onto the IRCC website, the next stage is to submit your application. So you need to scan all these documents and have it in the required size that IRCC approves. And then when that is done, of course, put your documentation together on the IRCC portal. Everybody has, you're applying as a family. If you're applying as a single person, you just have one application to submit and pay for yourself. If you're applying as a family, every member of the family has their application in the big overall application that is under the principal applicant. So for instance, you're coming, for instance, as the principal applicant, my husband had his own application, my first son had his own application, my second son had his own application, and everybody had their documents. So you see why I tell you that this is a very serious application to do. Everybody had their documents scanned. I had like folders on my computer that had myself, my husband, my 2 children. Under a person's folder, everybody had like subfolders. I had a folder for travel documents, which had like international passport, the NIN. Then there was birth certificate for each person. For me, my own documents were more, and then there was a folder for proof of funds, which was like the biggest part. There was additional document folders. These are the kind of documents that IRCC asks or request for in the application portal. So when you fill the details, of course, like the electronic forms online, you would attach the supporting documents that you request for that stage. So when you've done everything, and then of course you pay the application fees for each person in Canadian dollars. You have to pay that fees in Canadian dollars. When you've done all that, you pay the fees, and after paying the fees, you move on to the next stage. For kids under 14, they don't have to go to the next stage, right? It's just adults that need to do biometrics. So the biometrics is done at VFS. There's VFS centers all over the world. So when you've done your VFS, at the VFS office, they take your fingerprints, take photos of you, and then they send that to IRCC. And then that's when the waiting game starts. You have to wait. So that is the steps. So to recap, you get your admission letter, your letter of acceptance, you gather your documentation, determine the type of visa that you want to apply for your family, your spouse, for your children and your spouse. Gather your proof of funds, your account statement. You have to show that you can actually fund yourself while in Canada. You can take care of yourself while in Canada. Then you gather your proof of funds documentation, and then you proof of home ties as well. Then you do your police certificate, you do your medicals, you put together your study plan, your statement of purpose, which is the biggest thing. It's like that essay is like one of the hardest essays to write, right? So you do that, you do your biometrics, and then you wait for your visa. By God's grace, it will be approved. So after all that, you wait for your visa, and then the waiting game begins. And so that is it. That's the process. You receive your visa, and then you start planning to come to Canada. But if after everything I have said, it looks like a lot of work, it's a lot of work. Talking about it in 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes video might seem that it is not a lot, but it is a lot of work. My application process took me 5 months or even 7 months from when I gained admission to putting my documentation together. Like, it took me 3 months to write a study plan, a statement of purpose that I was convinced enough to apply with, because so many versions. So you need to spend a lot of time, and I got my approval in 6 weeks. Right? Because I think I did a lot of work. At the end of the day, I told my mom, there was nothing else we could have added to this application. We did so much. We spent time doing the application. There's no point hurrying to apply. When you just want admission, I'm going to apply in 1 month, and then IRCC gets back to you next week and they give you a refusal. Spend a lot of time putting your documents together. Just, that you're not going to be there for a physical interview. So your documents need to answer the questions. Your documents need to speak for themselves. You're not there. They're not going to ask you why you come to study in Canada. What are you planning to do? You need to show. If there's a particular industry that you're aspiring to get into when you finish your studies, you need to show it in the application. Like, I'm going to enter into this industry. This is what I'm going to be earning. I even added links to my SOP. Like, okay, when I finish this school and come back to Nigeria, this is the kind of salary I'm going to be earning now. Because I've not gotten this education, I'm not able to grow in my career. You need to show how much the amount of money you're coming to spend in Canada is going to be beneficial to you afterwards. Like, you're going to reap the fruit of your labor, so to say, right? So take your time and do all that. Put your documents together, and then when you apply, you know that, okay, I've done everything. Now it's in the hands of God and the visa officer. But if everything I've said sounds overwhelming, you can as well hire an immigration consultant. There's also a link in this video that would show you like how to search if the person you're talking to is an immigration consultant and not an agent. They'll definitely be on that list. There are several of them on Instagram that have also gotten like good success stories. They've helped a lot of people to come study in Canada. So you can check them out as well. If you can't do it alone, I did DIY. I did it myself. If you can't do it yourself, you can hire them. If you have the money and you don't have the time to do it by yourself. But the Canadian immigration process is actually a DIY process. If you can invest a lot of time in it, you can hire an immigration consultant. You can even hire somebody to help you search for admission. There are lots of edu technology organizations currently helping people to search for admissions as well. Yeah, and I know a few of them. So just whatever works for you. Really, you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to do it yourself if you don't have the time. You know, a lot of people are busy, and it might seem very overwhelming to actually sit down and go through the process. It is overwhelming. It's mentally draining. I can't even lie. It is mentally draining. Well, because it's what we really wanted to do. We had to invest time. It was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of late nights sleeping. When I come back from work, when we come back from work, of course, when my husband and the kids have gone to bed, from like 9 p.m. we're on our laptop. Okay, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to gather these documents. We're reviewing SOPs. We are compressing documents that we've scanned. Like, it's a lot, and if you can't do it, just get a professional to help. Yeah. So that's the concluding part of this video. I hope it's been helpful. So I hope you've learned something valuable from this video. Do well to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share this video to people. Help this channel to grow. For more people to find my channel. I hope you're getting enough value from this channel so far. It is a lot of work to do these videos. I can't even so I'm recording this video on a Saturday and I have to edit it tonight for it to come out on Sunday. I'm trying to be really consistent, but you guys need to encourage me. Okay, thank you. I know you're going to do the right thing. You're going to do the right thing and share this video, subscribe, like, leave a comment, and yes, I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.